Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday to you. It's Victory Monday here on the Overreaction Monday show. I am your host, Anwar Richardson. No Jeff Ketchum today. It's all right. I can hold this thing down. We've got a lot of Texas things to discuss. Playoffs? Oh, yeah. We're going to discuss playoffs. We'll do a little bit of a recap from this past weekend's game, and then we really got to get into where Texas stands, because that victory that Texas was able to get over Vanderbilt this past weekend ends up being something that really sets Texas up for the next three games. We're going to talk about the importance of the next three games, but on this Overreaction Mondays brought to you by the Rogue Shop. Make sure you go over there, use the promo code Orange Bloods. I'll talk more about their products in a little bit, but shout out to them as the sponsor of the Overreaction Monday show. We're not going to say Texas is back, but what we will say is sure looking much better than it was looking at before. Texas has now put itself in a legit position to make not only a run for the conference championship, to get to the conference championship game, but to also have a run to potentially get to the playoffs. And I hear you, Patrick, but the reality is we have to talk about playoffs because there's only 3 games left. In fact, Patrick, here's why we have one of the other reasons why we have to have this discussion today is because the CFP Selection Committee rankings will be released tomorrow. The first one of the rankings. Screw the AP rankings and coaches poll. By the way, it's pretty ridiculous that in the AP rankings, Oklahoma is ranked ahead of Texas. Throw that. I'm just throwing that. Yes, Oklahoma is ranked ahead of Texas in the AP poll. So we are at the point we don't have to give two whatevers about AP poll anymore or coaches poll. That kept us humored and amused. But starting tomorrow, it's on ESPN. If you got YouTube TV and stuff, and I guess you're gonna figure out a way to watch this thing from 8 to 8:45 Eastern time. So obviously 7 to 7:45 Central. It will be the first reveal of the rankings, and we'll see where Texas is. And this will be where you start and where you finish are going to be two absolutely things. But this is why I say, hey, we got to have this conversation. And honestly, Texas has put itself in a position, and I'm going to quote retweet this, that I'm retweeting this something, that now we can safely have this conversation without feeling like, okay, that was absolutely ridiculous. So, of course, Patrick, it's nothing but love. Wasn't coming at you, but I'm getting you hype about, hey, this is where we're at as relates to this entire conversation. All right. This is also where we're at when you have to do this damn show by yourself. So let's talk about this past weekend. Because the thing that I like that I saw, and one of the things I wrote on my column on Sunday, it's on Orange Bloods, you should be able to access it, is that if the Texas team that we saw, if that is, and more specifically the offense, if that's the team that we're going to see going forward, and if everything is finally gelling and everything is falling in place, right? And all of a sudden, this is the offense. Yes, the defense, kind of weird the last couple of weeks, kind of uncharacteristic for them, the Mississippi State thing, and then, of course, the fourth quarter thing this past week. And now there was some injuries, obviously, that played a little bit of a part in that. You still have Taft in there, and Jelani McDonald got hurt during the game, right? So I'm willing to, though, give that Texas team, I don't want to say a mulligan, but I know what it looks like when Texas plays on a high level. We've seen that, the defense specifically, right? We've seen what happened against Ohio State, right? When they were playing on a high level, right? We saw what they did against Oklahoma when they're playing on a high level. We saw that Kentucky could struggle to move to get the ball against this defense, right? So we know that it's there, right? It's there. It's in them. We know that they can do this. What we didn't know was that the offense might settle in and Arch start looking more comfortable. I don't want to do the comparisons with Arch or anything like that. And people always want to compare it to something. It don't matter. You don't need to compare him to anybody. He's got to be the best version of himself. If that Arch is getting comfortable, one of the things I pointed out is that there's going to be some teams in trouble. If the run game is starting to come along, we saw C.J. Baxter, we saw Quintravian Wisner. If that's coming along, okay, that's some teams going to be in trouble. And this offensive line, if the moving of Cole Hudson to guard, Robertson to center, if that's the thing that is the thing that they needed, again, you start looking at it, it's like, man, some teams in trouble. And more importantly, too, these receivers. One of my biggest complaints about the receivers this year has been, the lack of yak. Not enough yak. And what we saw on Saturday was receivers who were just taking the ball and making plays. What I've been waiting to see. One of the things I talked about on the show on Friday is I'm like, you've got to get Ryan Wingo involved. If you watch it, I've been banging the table that this offense will not be a dynamic offense unless Ryan Wingo emerges as the number one guy. And I've been consistent with that. And what we've seen now over the past couple of weeks is, and again, he got hurt, but what you see is, okay, Sark has figured it out. I mentioned this on Friday, but I'll mention it again. It's that screenplay, that screenplay that he likes to throw to Wingo. It's basically kind of was something that you might throw for a running back. But he just said, you know what? Shoot, you're athletic. I found a way to get you the ball. It is what it is, right? What I love about what Sark did, because this is kind of one of my 5 keys that I had. One of my keys really was like, hey, you need to be a little bit more simple with the offense. You don't need these long developing plays, right? One of the keys for me was like, hey, just go out there and quick passes, short passes, just get these guys involved. And if you could do that, now instead of saying like, man, Arch, I need you to wait under an offensive line that may or may not give you protection, you don't have to worry about that. Just give it a little bit of ball suit. What we saw on this past weekend, we saw an offensive line that was actually providing protection. And I'm like, whoa, well, where the hell has this been? Where the hell has this been? And if this is what we're going to see going forward, okay, there it is. The thing that I think we have to realize when we have this conversation, I saw something on X, and then I did my own research, and it is true. If you look at it, there's not a single SEC team that has a top 20 offense and a top 20 defense. Go look it up. There's not a single SEC team that has a top 20 offense or a top 20 defense. And both. In other words, we don't have that one dominant team that's just wreaking havoc, right? Like they're untouchable, badass on offense, badass on defense. We don't see that. There's more parity in the league. There's more parity, of course, college football. NIL has played a part in that, right? Where guys, it's not like one program is just stacking all the talent and hoarding it, and everybody else is just kidding what's left, right? And so because of that parity that's there, I think you have to look at a team like Texas and say to yourself, nobody in this league is really dominating. Nobody's blowing teams out. And every team is having those kind of games where you just go, ugh. Now look, the biggest knock on Texas is the loss against Florida, right? I mean, that's the biggest knock on them. But once we get past that, I'm gonna tell you something. And one of the things I wrote is I felt like to make the playoffs. And I'm talking about playoffs, and I'm talking about conference championships and all those kind of things. Okay. If Texas, only 3 games left. If Texas beats, I would say Georgia, or if they beat A&M, let's say they do 2 out of the 3. Okay. Well, and I'm giving them Arkansas, right? That's just blind faith, right? This is a team that's going to be hard to keep out of the playoffs. This is a team that even if they don't make a conference championship game, you would have to say you can't keep that team out of the playoffs. Why? Because at that point, Texas would be able to say they had a top 10 win against Oklahoma, ranked 6th at the time. They would have had a top 10 win against Vanderbilt, ranked 9th at the time. And currently, Georgia's ranked 5th and A&M is ranked 3rd. If this team finishes 9-3 with 3 top 10 wins, it's hard to keep them out the playoffs. It just is. As a wild card team, right? It's hard to keep them out. So that when we start looking at, even if they don't make the conference championship game, and that's got to be the goal, right? That's what you're gunning for. But even if that doesn't happen, I find it's hard to keep a team that has 3 top 10 wins out with a loss against the defending national champions in their house. You get what I'm saying? Are you picking up what I'm putting down as relates to this team? Now, look, let's get into some. I'll show you a projection. My dude Andy Staples did one of his projections over the weekend. Shout out to him. He's got Ohio State in at the number 1 spot. He's got Indiana at 2, A&M at 3, and Alabama at 4. Okay, which probably means he's got A&M and Alabama in the conference championship game at this moment. And we'll get into that in a second, okay? And then you go through the rest of it. He's got Georgia, so that's the 3rd SEC team that's in there. Ole Miss would be the 4th one in there as well, followed by Georgia Tech. He's got Vanderbilt in there, which is really interesting as well. And the teams that he doesn't have Texas in there in the mix at this moment. That's just Andy. Y'all can go ahead and give him all the world of trouble on X that you want to. But let's see, that's his projection. Again, we'll find out more tomorrow. Actually, that's an old one. Wait a second. I think that's an old one. Nah, this is his current one. All right. So here's his current one. He still has Texas out, though. Not much has changed, honestly, from one week to another. He still has Texas as being one of his first 4 out of the playoffs, right? So he's got Bama in. He's got A&M in. I'm just saying this for people who are driving and are not looking at the screen. Please don't do that if you're listening to me in the car. You got Bama. He's got Bama in. He's got A&M in. He's got Georgia in. He's got Ole Miss in. And he's got Vanderbilt in. That would be his 5. And the SEC may very well get 5 in there. But let's look. And this is where we are from a ranking standpoint. Standings, excuse me. So you've got Texas A&M sitting there, no losses yet. And I know y'all don't love that. And I know people will keep saying like, well, A&M hasn't played anybody. Well, here's my deal. It's not like we went into the season saying we thought A&M was going to be like that great. So you do have to give them credit for the wins that they have, because typically these are games that A&M would have lost, right? So so if you say someone they haven't played anybody, it's almost a way of saying like, hey, you gotta respect what they've been able to do. So yeah, they did defeat Notre Dame. That did happen. And then yes, everybody else you could say it's just shoulder shrug it. They beat LSU. They've got Missouri coming up soon, and then we'll get into that. So I'll give them giving their props a little bit, not too much. Well, that's enough. Alabama, of course, they're right there in the number 2 spot. These are the only programs in the SEC that do not have losses. And then you just got this jumble in here when you've got Ole Miss, Georgia, and Texas, right? And look, these are more than likely the teams from Texas up that will compete in a conference championship game. A&M's probably not going to lose that many more games. Alabama's probably not going to lose many more games. Ole Miss is probably not going to lose many more games. That just kind of is what it is. Now, if you're Georgia, you need Alabama to lose at some point, right? I mean, but the good part for Texas is that, look, they knock off Georgia. Georgia's done as far as the conversation is concerned. And then they knock off A&M. They've got a tiebreaker against A&M. So now you're at that point where, hey, if you can do both, even if you don't get to the conference championship game, even if Alabama runs it, and even if Ole Miss runs it, again, now at that point, you've got 4 wins against top 10 teams. Like at that point, it's a no-brainer. It's just a matter of, what game are we hosting in December, right? That's more than likely. 9-3, public traveling is going to be on the road. But that's kind of the killers right there. I would say that's where we got to focus on over the next 3 weeks. Like we're at that point where our focus has to be conference championship game and playoffs, because now it's for all the marbles. Now it's for all the money. It's the thing that Sarkisian, I asked him about that last week, and he's like, Les, I do talk to the guys about this, and I don't spend a lot of time on it, what Sarkisian said, but he's like, it's going to be tough if we drop a game. So of course beating Vanderbilt was important, and getting that win was super important. And I guess, that's what I'm saying. Like, even though it doesn't look sexy, and even though you can say, man, this team struggled against Kentucky, and they didn't, took a hell of an effort to beat Mississippi State and all that. But, the fascinating part is Sark acknowledged this. And he even said, he said on Saturday, he said, I don't know if 6-2 will be good enough this year. I think 7-1's got to be the deal. And the only way to go 7-1 is to win the next one. And that was our focus this week, right? So even he understands that if you're sitting with a 6-2 record, it's probably not going to be good enough, because you don't have enough teams that are going to lose ahead of them, right? And so this is look at the remaining schedules, okay? So you got the standings in your head, and I'm going to flip back and forth. So A&M right now is number 1 in the standings, right? So now if we flip it over here, this is all A&M has left. They've got Missouri, but Missouri's starting quarterback is out. I don't know if you guys know that or not, but Missouri's starting quarterback is out. And so they've got a freshman that's going to play in there. We'll see what that looks like. But if A&M gets past Missouri, South Carolina is a breeze. Of course, they're going to win against Stanford. And at that point, when they play against a Texas team, they're pretty close to in. And again, a lot of that's going to depend on what Ole Miss would do and Alabama is concerned. So we'll just see how that one looks, right? And so then it's a little bit difficult. Okay, well, so then we'll go to Alabama. I wished it had been put a little bit. It's okay. I'm not going to give Tyler a hard time today. Alabama. We would have thought the LSU game, and LSU game is going to be a good game. It's going to be a high-paced, emotional game, all those kind of things. But Alabama should beat LSU. Then they get the revenge game against Oklahoma. And then after that, it's Eastern Illinois and Auburn. Realistically, Alabama gets past LSU and they get past Oklahoma. It's pretty much a wrap at that point. Like they're done. Okay. Ole Miss is technically ranked above Georgia, if I'm correct. Yes, they are technically in these rankings. So, but nonetheless, if we'll just go with Georgia. Doesn't matter. We'll go with Georgia. They should beat Mississippi State. And then we'll see what it looks like for them against Texas. And this is a Texas team that's playing well, starting to get hot. And then after that, they've got Charlotte. And they've got Georgia Tech. Now, the Georgia Tech one is interesting, not from a conference standpoint, but Georgia Tech overall is a damn good program. So they themselves probably can't afford a couple of losses. But they need to get a quality one, and that's what they will need, the Texas one. Then there's Ole Miss. Ole Miss is good. What do y'all say? Y'all say Gucci? Ole Miss, they definitely don't have many words. They play the Citadel. As long as they don't poop in their pants, they should beat Florida. I don't know if you guys saw recently Dallas Wilson, the guy who went crazy against Texas when they played against Florida. He's out for the rest of the season with a leg injury. And what's crazy about that is after that Texas game, he literally just never replicated it, which is fascinating and somewhat frustrating, to be quite honest with you. But yes, he's out. So they should be able – Ole Miss should be able to run the table. Like Ole Miss is a team that, unless they just do something crazy, they should be in the playoffs. It should not only should they be in the SEC championship game, they should be in the playoffs. And then there's Texas, and this is such a fascinating graphic because we know the dates for Georgia and Arkansas. So these dates are to be determined. I gotta okay. I'm just gonna have to prove my man Tyler a little bit more. Georgia, we know Texas has a bye this week, so we know that game's not to be determined. That game's in a couple of weeks, followed by Arkansas. Times I believe are to be determined. And then, of course, A&M. I believe the TBDs is supposed to be times to be determined. But the dates should be in there, unfortunately. And that's okay. We'll just work it out. Nonetheless, that's what it looks like. So when I start looking at it, you look at Ole Miss probably going to be in the SEC championship game. They have the easiest path. I would say of any of the 4 teams, 5 teams that are competing right now, I'd say Ole Miss has the easiest path. Well, I say that being said, I say Ole Miss has it. They probably don't have the easiest path, but they're going to win out. I'll say it like that. They're going to win out. Texas A&M, we'll see. I mean, I know y'all going to be rooting for a loss against Missouri. And, of course, you're going to want Texas to do that. And then Alabama, their biggest obstacle going forward for them is probably Oklahoma, unless they just stub their toe against LSU. But their biggest obstacle should be Oklahoma. If Alabama does get past Oklahoma, they don't stub their toe, they are probably in. And so realistically, but Texas, if you just look at this, Texas still has an opportunity. Texas is still alive in this thing. And again, even if it's not conference championship, you win 2 out of the next 3, and Arkansas has to be on that list, then yeah, you probably will make the playoffs. As crazy as it sounds, as crazy as it may look, and as crazy as the season has been, one of the things that Sark talked about after the game is that he said, like, this is something that is not brand new to them. We always look for the perfection. Yeah, I'm sorry, I was chilling while I was looking at that stuff. We always look for the perfection of teams, and that's why I gave you that stat that, hey, most teams don't dominate the way that they're supposed to. And yeah, I do have some confidence in Lane Kiffin. I think Lane Kiffin more so than anything else right now, and we're just being real, like Lane Kiffin is coaching to get a raise. He's literally coaching to get a raise. Whether he just says, you know what, Ole Miss, pay me more, or I'm going to go to Florida, I don't think this is going to be the year that he stubs his toe. Sometimes these guys put together these crazy, fantastic seasons, and then we maybe not see it again, but they get out while the getting's good. And so I don't think he's going to stub his toe when it's all said and done. Like, I think he's going to be able to put it together. But that's what I'm saying. Like, as crazy as the season has looked for Texas, at the end of the day, y'all, they're still there. None of these teams that you can really say, have dominated. You can say, again, Texas is the one that has like the loss, right? The bad loss, right? But if you look at A&M, they went toe to toe with Arkansas and gave up 42 points against Arkansas, a team that none of us really think is that good. You know why we don't think they're that good? Because Arkansas didn't think they were that good, and they fired their coach. And by the way, Auburn fired Hugh Freeze. They firing everybody right now. Let me tell you, career path. Forget being a player in the NFL. Be a coach in college. Just climb the ladder for a few years. And then the next thing you know, you get that big job and you're good. That's it. And now you're rich for the rest of your life. They say, I saw something over the weekend. I don't know if it's still true or trending, that Jeff Traylor was a candidate for Auburn. And I'm like, go Jeff. If Jeff gets paid, hey, I'm not mad at you, right? But you look at that, you look at, no team is really that perfect. Alabama goes, it's 29-22 versus South Carolina. It doesn't really look that good. They lost to Florida State to start out the season, right? So, some things you just got to put into perspective. You look at Georgia, and here it is 20-10 versus Auburn, 24-20 versus Florida. They beat them. That's something to be said for that. They beat them, but it's not like Georgia, even in that game, that was a close game. Hand clap for that. None of them look perfect. Ole Miss versus Kentucky, that's a 20-23 game that Ole Miss, and Ole Miss lost to Kentucky last year. It's 24-21 versus Washington State, right? So the thought process of you're just going to have a dominant team, just not what it is. There's too much parity. There's too many moving parts. And so I think what we got to do is take a step back. And we got to think to ourselves, all y'all listening, all y'all in the chat, you guys are more informed than the average Longhorn fan. You are. You're way smarter. Okay, you got analysis upon analysis. The key details. You love this team, but you also love following the little parts of the team, recruiting, so on and so forth, right? Well, what happens is, because sometimes you're so close to the situation, you aren't always able to take a step back. And if you take a step back, you look and say, okay, at the end of the day, you know what? We're still right here. At the end of the day, yes, these weren't the best wins, but at the end of the day, you got the wins. And what Sark said after the game was this. He said 2 years ago, in our final year in the Big 12, because he said none of this is new to them. He's like 2 years ago, their final year in the Big 12, they lost to Oklahoma. And then they had to win out to get to the Big 12 championship game. And he said that season came down to beating Tech there in DKR in the final game. He said, but people forget that we had to beat Kansas State in overtime, stop Houston on 4th and 1 while they were driving, all that. And that Houston game was crazy. I don't know what the history looks like if they don't pull out that win versus Houston. Then he pointed out last year, they lost to Georgia, and then they had to win out. And it came down to they had to beat who? Texas A&M on the road in Kyle Field. Many of y'all went to that game. But he said along the way, they had to recover an onside kick against Vanderbilt. And they had a 4th down Quinn Ewers run at Arkansas, right? So he's like, this is nothing new. So, yes, what we're going to have to kind of get used to, unfortunately, is that you're just going to have to get used to teams that you just got to say, man, as long as you win, that's all that matters. As long as you pulled out the dub, that's all that matters. Because it's so hard to be dominant right now. But I tell you this, and I go back to it, and I do got to get out of here, unfortunately, because Sark has a press conference today. They bumped it up, so I do have to roll. But if it's like that, when we look back at that one season, we just think about Texas going to the Big 12 championship game and winning it, and Quinn's performance in that game versus Oklahoma State, right? We don't really dwell on the Houston game. We know that happened. Ugh. We don't dwell on that. Like, we know that Wyoming happened one year, right? It was like, why is this team in life and death with Wyoming? We know that happened. But we shouldn't shrug it when it's all said and done. It's like, well, all that matters is that you won and you got to the conference championship game and you won that, right? The same thing we go with as relates to Texas. Well, if everything continues to go the way that it's going, we're going to look back at the season and shoulder shrug some of those games. The same way we shoulder shrug some of the games from last year where we said, man, Texas could have played a little bit better, or wish we would have done a little bit more. And look, I know they dominated in a lot of games last year, but, Vanderbilt was a close game, and Vanderbilt was kind of barely bowl eligible at the time. Arkansas was 20-10. Like, that wasn't really an amazing game / performance, anything to that effect, right? You just got to be happy with it. So here's my thing. As long as they continue to progress, and as long as they're still fighting, and as long as they're still in it, Texas has a chance. And I just think from a mindset standpoint, we got to tell ourselves it's probably not going to look perfect. It's probably not going to look great. However, if this is the start of something, look, all that matters is that Texas looks like a team that if they put it together, they can go into Georgia and win. Is it going to be a crazy environment? Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. But this is also a staff, players that went into Alabama a couple of years ago, and they know what that's like. We'll have many more Georgia conversations. There will be definitely Georgia conversations to be had in the next couple of weeks. This week, next week, we'll definitely get into it. But just know, as you sit here on Monday, Victory Monday, as we're getting everything started, just know at the end of the day, all that matters is that Texas is still alive. And in the end, we'll just take those dubs and keep it moving. Rogue Shop, we got to get out of here. Rogue Shop, promo code Orange Bloods. Use that. All your CBD needs, everything that you got going on. You need some pain. You got some pain. Get the salve. If you've got need some sleep, I use it to get sleep. I'll take a gummy 7 o'clock or so, 7:30. Be knocked out by 9 o'clock or so, 9:30, about 9:30 or so. Sleep all through the night. Wake up in a fantastic mood, and everyone will love you at work. So Rogue Shop, check them out. Use that promo code Orange Bloods. We will have the show at noon. Sark will address the media today, so we'll have the show at noon, and then obviously those guys will recap everything that was said. Sark's press conference is at 11 o'clock. Thank you for asking me. So yes, I got to hightail it out of here from Cedar Park. head downtown. Hopefully not sit into too much traffic. So you guys go out, have a fantastic day. Remember, I always say live each day like it's your last. One day it will be. Man,